I want to talk today about getting past the chaos in life. And I think what happens perhaps to too many of us is something chaotic happens in our life. And instead of getting past it, which is what I want to talk about how to do today, we participate in it. And then the chaos starts to move inside of us. Have you ever noticed that happening to you? Where something chaotic happened around you, and the next thing you know, somehow the chaos, by you participating in it, started to get inside of you. I can say this, you can almost feel it in your chest. Like, man, these people were fighting over here, and then I got involved. Next thing you know, my blood pressure went up, my anger went up, my anxiety went up, and next thing you know, I'm participating in it. And what I think is, what God would have for us in our life is for us not to participate in the chaos and to let the chaos then invade us, but for us to step outside of the chaos. And the interesting thing is, if you go to the very beginning of the Bible, this is the pattern that we see from the very, very beginning. In Genesis 1, the second verse, right? It says, the earth was formless and empty, and the other word is chaotic. If you want to know the Hebrew, tohu vavohu. Everybody, let's try it, just for grins. Tohu vavohu. That's just a big mess. There's a big mess. Who here has ever had a big mess? Who's going home to a big mess? In the kitchen. It's a mess. It was just a mess. Everything's a mess. It was tohu vavohu. It was messed up. And it says this, and the Spirit of God was hovering. Everybody say hovering. Hovering. So it's a mess. Now, when you got a mess, if you can ever get above it. Okay, let's say you have years ago, our church got very involved with the recovery efforts in Katrina. And so we took a group down there to bring water. We bought water. I remember this. We bought a ton of granola bars and like protein bars. And we brought like first aid kits. That was the first wave. We got down there super early, right after it happened. It was a spontaneous thing. I literally told the church that Sunday morning. I remember it was Labor Day weekend. And I said, you guys bring the supplies this afternoon. And I went and rented a U-Haul. And we started driving. We drove all night. And you get there, and it is a mess. It's an absolute mess. There's just destruction. And the problem is, we got in there, and we really wanted to help, but we lost the wheel. We got a flat. We were about to run out of gas. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? We were stuck in traffic. Yeah. It was absolute chaos. Now, if we were a professional outfit, which we were not in that case, what we would have done is we got ourselves a helicopter. And had gone up above it all, and you can see it from here. We would hover and take a look at it all. And somehow in Genesis, it all begins with God hovering outside of the chaos. And you can think about your own life, your own family. Sometimes we have chaos in our families. Sometimes we have chaos in our schedule. Anybody have I got a chaotic schedule. Sometimes we have chaos in our finances. I didn't know that bill was going to come. How many know, does it seem like they come at the wrong time? You know, when this one comes, then this one hits, and then you find out you're not going to get that one contract, or you're not going to get that raise, or you're not going to get that bonus, and they all come together, and it's chaos. think you could say there's a lot of chaos in our society today. And I want to invite you to choose another path. I think what happens to a lot of people is they feel like when they see chaos, they have to get involved. I have to beat the other side into submission. I have to get involved. And what God does in this situation is God's above it. He hovers. Steps outside of it. I was listening this week to Neil deGrasse Tyson. Anybody? Like physicist and genius? Whatever. And he was talking about dimensions. And he said, we don't talk about dimensions enough. You know, dimensions, like if you're on a line, you know what I mean? Then you have one dimension. You can go forward on the line. You can go back, right? It's a one-dimensional world. So if I'm here and I'm walking down the path and somebody's here, all I do is just scooch forward. But if somebody's coming the other direction and I live in a one-dimensional world, we're stuck. Are you with me? We're stuck because it's one dimension. You'd say, well, scoot over. No, that's two dimensions. I can't. We're just stuck. So thank God we know that we don't live in just a one-dimensional world. If I see someone coming at me this way, I can do what? Anybody ever do that at the mall and they did it at the same time? Oh. So you can scooch over. You can head this way. But not only that, you have the ability, now we live in what we call a what? 3 dimension. So I can go this way, that way, I can go this way and that way, and I can go what? So I was listening to Neil deGrasse Tyson. He was talking about an ant, you know. So since this is here, we'll use this. It's not a perfect example, but go with me. Can you go with me? Yeah. Okay, all right. We'll say it's flat, square, a 2-dimensional system. And we'll say there's an ant inside of the flat square. And everything's 2-dimensional. Are you with me so far? Everything's flat. And if it starts to rain inside of the square and the ant gets panicked, what you would tell the ant as a 3-dimensional creature is you'd say, just what? Just step outside the square. But that's not an option for an ant because they're in a 2-dimensional world. You're saying, I could see so easily how you could just get outside of this. Who here has ever watched 2 kids fighting? And you could see an easy way out. No, sir, I mean, it's funny, but it's also, you can see an easy way out, like this is probably not necessary. But they are locked into this dimension. They're locked into this level. And you, like me and my brother would fight constantly. Now, my mom has some sort of parental amnesia. And she's, honey, you kids never fought. Besides every day when my brother gave me my breakfast beatdown, and we fight, and then, but parents try to break it up, and they have all kinds of things that they do. You got your lines, mom and dad, you got your, you know, kids always start, well, he started it, right? And you know, like some of the dads, old school dads say, well, oh, you make me come back there, I'm going to finish it, right? Or I don't care who started it. It needs to be, oh, you know, we have all of these lines. And my mom used to tell me, my brother was bigger, 1 year older, she would say, honey, don't worry, one day you're going to be bigger than him. It's like, I don't know what kind of parental advice that is. Like you can give him the ultimate beatdown one day. But I just think, you're surviving. How many parents know you're surviving? And you go to sleep and you think, I don't know if that was the best advice, but we dodged the moment, right? It's kids, they get locked into this. But Paul said something. Paul said this, right now we think like children, 1 Corinthians 13, and we reason like children. Now we see in part. We don't have the whole picture. You're screaming to that ant, just get out, just step out. You're trying to tell these kids, just step out, just don't take the bait, just don't engage your brother when he does that. But they can't help it. They're stuck. They're stuck at a dimension. Now, according to Mr. Tyson, he says, now, a being from the fourth dimension would have a similar perspective on beings from the third dimension. A being from the fourth dimension would just be able to look at us and our stupidity and our chaos and our fighting and say, just step out of it. In fact, who's ever done this to you, to get rid of a chaotic situation? You literally just physically moved them apart. I'm not connecting with anybody today. I mean, my parents would be like, now you're going over into this room. This is going to end here. We're going to step out of this situation. So was my home the only one where we had little sibling fighting? I thought I would be connecting this morning, and okay. So you got to step out of it. You got to step and see it from here. And God's, he's hovering above it. Now when you're above it, you can see, it's like, oh, that didn't matter that much. Here's a good example, time. Now you have time on your side. Who can look back at a point in time in your life? You can look back at a point in time and go, man, was I silly then? You have that beauty. You can look back and you go, wow. But when in the moment, that was so important. That was such a big deal. Remember yourself back then? And now you have this perspective. You can look back. You're stepping out of it. So the key, think about this. The key is, how do I step out of it right now? That's the question. How do I get outside of it so I can? How do I hover? Here's a one way to think about this. If you ever have a loving and trusted friend and a wise friend, those are a lot of good things. Loving, trusted, and wise. And if you get one, hold on to them. But if you get that combination and they have a conversation with you about the chaos in your life, sometimes they can see things that you can't see because they are what? Outside of it. Outside of it. And you're like, yeah, I don't know if I'd get so crazy about. Or you're trying to deal with your kids. Who's ever had this? You're trying to deal with your kids. You're trying to navigate something. And then you start having a conversation with somebody else, and they got way worse problems. And all of a sudden you go, you're outside of it. Being outside of it is the key. 2 Corinthians says this. This is essential to what it means for us. It says, 2 Corinthians, I think, I'm going to talk to the booth for a minute back there. I think they have 1 Corinthians up there, and I gave it to them at the last minute, and I love you, and I won't publicly tell your name. But if you can find 2 Corinthians at any point in the service today, it's beautiful. And if you don't, I'm okay. Okay, look at that. There we go. The booth. All right, there we go. They have it before I even get done. They're so good. Let's say this together. For we live by faith, not by, let's do it together with some conviction. For we live by faith, not by. If I could summarize what it's all about, I think in some ways that simple sentence would kind of do it for us. We can't limit ourselves to what we can see. We can't limit ourselves to the ant world. So just as an ant needs a third dimension, a human needs access to the fourth dimension. The one thing that Neil deGrasse Tyson and I would disagree on, and he's way smarter than I am, but he says we're prisoners of the present, which was a good way of thinking of it if you're a scientist. He's like, the problem is we know, like, he called time the fourth dimension. I think in physics that's kind of commonly accepted. And so he said, if the problem with us humans is that we're prisoners of the present, but the thing is, I don't think we are. We have access. We can step out. I mean, what is prayer other than connection with God? It's outside. And I get it that, in the world of science, they only can do what they can see. And that's fair. So in the science world, and by those rules, that's all they can see. And so they walk by sight. That's the rules. But we walk by faith. So just because you can't see something doesn't mean you can't sense something. I'm getting close, Pastor Shane. I'm getting close. You can sense there's more. And you get a fundamental choice. I'm going to operate by what I see. I am going to operate in the chaos, or I'm going to step out. A lot of people are taking the bait right now. Jesus says, you live in this world, but not of this world. I just call it taking the bait. I see so many people caught up in the chaos. Caught in the chaos of politics, caught in the chaos of finances, caught in all kinds of chaos. And you don't have to. You can hover. You could stand above it. Do you remember when the disciples are on the boat and they're rowing and the storm comes up? This is the perfect story of it. And they're going to drown, and they said, Lord, don't you care? And Jesus is doing what? Sleeping. How do you sleep? How do you sleep? I think it was I saying a couple weeks ago, like I was at the mall. There's like sleep number 77, sleep factor, sleep this. Every corner of the mall is a new kind of mattress. And I got to thinking to myself, maybe we don't have a mattress problem. No, I mean, think about it. Like my grandma died, a year and a half ago or so when she was 100. Vicki and I were just talking about this. We just drove by. They just tore down the barn where she grew up, down by Adrian, the barn where they milked the cows, and they did that. They lived off of the farm, right? I'm pretty sure she didn't have a sleep number bed. But she lived to be 100. How do you live to be 100 without a sleep number bed? Sorry if I'm jonesing on that's your livelihood. I don't know. Send you a check. But, and this makes me think. I mean, you walk in, and then not only in the mall, but then right across the street from the mall, then there's 4 more mattress stores. Maybe our problem isn't our mattress. Maybe it's our mind. Maybe what's going on in here. Some of you don't like me. Well, when you're mad at me, just put your sleep number to 7 tonight. You have to think, though, wait a minute, all of a sudden, now, hey, believe me, I like to sleep in a comfortable bed just as much as everybody else. Not that there's anything inherently wrong with it. But I think we missed the message. Jesus is sleeping in the boat because he's not in the chaos. It's everywhere around him. Somebody baited you online. You took it. You came back. Huh? It was chaos there. Then what happened? Got a little chaotic here. Then all of a sudden got chaotic here. And then it got chaotic here. You feel it. You feel anger. Feel hatred. Is that good? Jesus, the disciples are, Lord, don't you even care? The funny thing is, and I've realized this, I've chosen many times to hover. And people are like, you don't care. And I was like, I don't need to care. Just try to care about the things that I need to care about. Hebrews 11:1. Faith is confidence in what we hope for, and it's assurance about what we do not see. This is all about not seeing. We walk by faith and not by sight. I am sure of it, even though I can't see it. I read this week about, Einstein's theory. He had this theory, and it held, and people kind of believed it because he was really smart, but it kind of made sense, but he couldn't prove it. And it took decades later for someone else to have the instruments to prove what he was thinking. If someone's thinking about something, it doesn't mean it's not true. You're holding on. Look, we walk by faith. Can I tell you something in a few minutes that we have to do for your own life? First thing I want you to do is get a good vision for your life. Don't start with, see, God's there, he's hovering, but he has a vision. I'm going to make this beautiful place, earth. Wow. He's got a vision for the chaos. You got to have a vision. Remember what God did with Abraham? He gives him a vision. Abraham's 99 years old. Let's read it. Genesis 17. He's 99 years old. God appears to him. He says, walk before me, be blameless. And this is not saying be perfect, by the way, but it's saying you put your life on an intentional path, walk with God. Everybody say walk with God. You got to walk with God. You do. Forget what everyone's telling you out there in the world. Like, that's all old stuff. No, you got to walk with God. You got to hear God's voice. You got to have a relationship with God. He goes on to say, then I will make my covenant between me and you. This is the promise. And I'm going to greatly increase your numbers. He starts to plant a vision. Abram fell face down and said to him, ready? This is important. This was my covenant with you. You will be the father of many nations. That's the vision. You will no longer be called Abram, but your name will be Abraham. We talked about this. This is the carryover from last week. Abraham, father of many. He has none. But when you get a vision, that it's a true vision, then you start to change things. You start to make changes. You see this all the time. Some young person gets a vision for their life. They used to walk around, and all they ever wore were sweatpants, or all they ever wore were pajamas, and all they ever did, their hair was never combed. All of a sudden, they got a vision for their life, and they started getting dressed in the morning. What are they doing? They're not there yet. They haven't achieved it, but they got the vision. Does this make sense? So when you get the vision, you start to change it. I got to change my name. It's father of many, Abraham. You have to have a positive vision for your life, a positive one, something that you can move towards, and then you lock onto it. You lock on. You're not going to let it go. This is what God has for me. Abraham gets this vision. He gets all of these tests, all of these trials, but he holds on. This is the vision. And there's something powerful. When God comes to you, when you connect with the next dimension, if you will, it's so easy to fix the chaos if you're outside of the dimension. It's so easy to see for God, it's like, this is nothing. That's why over and over in the scripture it says, with God, all things are possible. Just for a little side thing, think about this. The creator of the universe says to you, I will take care of all of your needs. I will provide for you. Now, I think it's also very fair in the scripture, you got to put a little skin in the game. Are you with me? You might need to get out of bed. But he says he's going to take care of you. So if you have this sense that God who made all of this massive creation is going to take care of me. He's going to provide for me. You know, the other day, just Friday, I went down to do a wedding in Indiana, and it's not even far. I mean, I was 5 minutes into Indiana from the Michigan-Indiana line, you know. So it wasn't even far. It was like a 2-hour drive, 2 hours and 10 minutes. But, you know, if you've ever gone that way, there's nothing but farms. The whole drive. There's nothing but farms. And I had this thought, like, it's so big, and I only went 2 hours from here. There's just farm after farm after farm after farm after farm. And if you look on the map of the United States, it's just like this far. And you think about how big our nation is. You think about how big our world is. You think about God putting all this there and then saying, I'll take care of you. If we believed that, would we ever need to take something from somebody else? No, I don't need to take yours. There's endless. Do you see how the idea that if we trusted God, if we lived with faith and trusted God, it would immediately cease all fighting? Maybe that's what Paul meant when he said we're saved by faith. It would save us. I don't need to take yours. Are you kidding me? I got mountains. In fact, you can have some of mine. It would turn the world upside down, which is what it says in the book of Acts. The early disciples, they turned the world upside down. They taught people a completely different way to live by faith and not by sight. The last thing you want to do is you want to speak good. You want to speak towards your vision. Don't use negative language constantly in your life. Oh, I'm so depressed. I'm so broke. I'm so poor. I'm so tired. Somehow your mind locks into this. There's a scripture in James that says, a tongue is a small thing, a small little organ in your body, but it is powerful. It can steer the direction of your life, like a rudder steers a ship. You have this big, massive ship, and you got this little tiny rudder, and it says, go that way. And the whole thing goes, okay. If you say so, little rudder. You get your whole life. You got your whole life. And your tongue is on, and your body goes, okay, little flapper. Your tongue steers your life, James says. You don't need to say, it's so bad. Get up and words. I'm so blessed. I'm so fortunate. God is so good. God has good things in store for me. I don't know what they are, but I know that they're good. I have a wonderful family. I have a wonderful opportunity. I have a wonderful future. You just keep going with the wonderful. Chris, but you're missing it. You know, it's just, I just need to. Do you? Do you? Or did you accept that from somebody else? Think about the people that you know in your life. Those kind of people. They're always negative, always speaking the negative. And they have this wonderful, beautiful life? I'm not sure. I think you will find, and I meet people all along the way, and they talk the good. They speak the good. Walking by faith doesn't mean you don't have difficulty. It doesn't mean you aren't aware. It says in the scripture that Abraham faced the fact that his body was as good as dead. He was well aware of the facts. It means you read the doctor's report. It means you know you're this far from bankrupt. It means you're well aware. But you have faith. You're trusting God. If God is for me, what could be against me? I don't know about your math, but once you add God to any part of whatever your side of the equation is, you're on the plus side. Think about this. He says, as it is written, I have made you a father of many nations. So Abraham starts calling himself Abraham, father of many. It starts becoming a part of his language. You know, I have all of these friends I grew up with, and when we get together, we do like once a year to play golf from Flint, and everybody has a nickname. Does this happen where you grew up? Like, nobody calls anybody by their name, so it sounds strange if someone would say, hey, Bob, because no, you know, it's like, hey, Scooter, hey, Scratchy, hey, Itchy, whatever, you know, whatever their names are. You call them that. And it almost sounds weird when they say their real name. But it's weird. You start to take on the persona of that person that you're called. Abraham, father of many, father of many, father of many, father of many. You don't name your kid Little Broken, huh? Little Beat Down. They get names like Belle, the French for what? Beautiful, right? They get names that elevate, that lift to them. Father of many. Some of you need to change your name. I mean, you don't need to go legally change it, but you need to change the language that you use about yourself. Say, Chris, that's not going to fix everything. I'll tell you what, it'll start to fix your mind. It'll start to fix your mind to thinking, you know what, God does have good things for me. And if Abraham could do this and he's 99 years old, then you know what, I could do this too. And God could bring good things in my life, and I could focus on the good. You move to what you focus on. Then it says this. Verse 17 says, the God who gives life to the dead, listen to this, and calls into being things that were not. Calls into being things that were not. That was not into being, and God called it into being. I'll tell you a couple things. You can't get this anywhere else. You go on the internet, you go around, you go to this seminar, that seminar. They don't teach this stuff. This is faith. This is what makes us different. This is not, but God calls it. By the way, go talk, speaking of these physicists, go talk to them and get to the very, very, very root of, well, but where did it all start? They're terrified of the word God. They're terrified of it. So they do anything, but like, who started the spark? Even if you buy into every other thing that they talk about, the whole chain of events, but then you go, but where did and who brought the thing to explode? They just call it first cause. Huh? How safe is that? I'm going to introduce you to my God, first cause. Something started it all. It's something that was called into being. How did all of this get here? It was not here, and now it's here. And if God can do that, God can do anything in your life. So stop buying into the materialist worldview. What I mean by materialist is I'm not talking about Madonna, like you bought too many purses, although it could be related. Do you know what I mean by materialist? I mean, what's taught in our universities to our students is the materialist reduction. That's it. If it's not material, it can be reduced to material. It doesn't exist. There is no God. There is no divine spark. And it's permeating. Listen, it's seeping into our pores. Even if people go, no, I still believe in God. No, it's getting sucked in. It's like they don't believe God to do these kinds of things anymore. But God does this. And if you have a vision for your life, you follow that vision and you change your language and you change your life and you move to the better vision that God has for you. I can't see it. But You can see it in here. Here's what I want to tell you. Don't limit your life. Don't limit your life to what you can see. Don't limit your life to what other people tell you is possible. Don't limit your life to the things that are around you in your culture. You follow and you serve an unlimited God, a God who does not have limits. Spend an afternoon trying to study outer space, just an afternoon, an hour, and just try to figure out how big it is and where it stops. Your mind will just go poof. It's all just an accident. It's just all kind of a really wild coincidence. Limitless. We get so limited in our thinking. And you don't have to be limited. When you're outside of it, you can hover above it. And you can think, oh, man. It's just, let me go back to the beginning. You watch two kids fighting. You're like, oh, man. You know, fighting over a cookie. You got 4 dozen in the... Why are you guys fighting over a cookie? See what God's doing? He's like, come on. You remember when Jesus comes into Jerusalem at the end? This is so profound. He rides into Jerusalem on a donkey and he's crying. He's weeping because they don't get it. He goes, how I longed to gather you under my wings like a mother would gather her chicks, but you wouldn't let me. God's like, I just want to take care of you, but you got to let me. I think that's how it is sometimes. God sees us down there in our silliness. He's like, just let me take care of you. People of faith, they're different. Abraham was different. There's no doubt about it. They hear, and they see. And you don't need to prove it to anybody else, but what you need to know is for yourself. The only person that Abraham had to convince that he was the father of many nations was himself. Whatever anybody else thought, that doesn't matter. I want to tell you something about your life. God has vision for your life. Don't get caught in the chaos. Don't get caught in the small. It's so small. You're screaming at that ant, just step over, just look at all this, you could be out here. Huh? Jesus is weeping. It's like, just step over, just come on. You don't need to splash around in there. God is so much more.